essentially all the way up.
Got it. Got it. Okay, let's give this a shot then. Good morning to people on YouTube. Can you hear me now?
Got to give them about 20 seconds.
Just make sure that we've got some sound happening on
essentially
YouTube.
All the way up.
There we go. All right. YouTube is responding. Okay, let's give that. That's wonderful. Perfect. All right, we'll just get started on that again then. So good morning, everybody on YouTube. It's actually Peter speaking right now. You've got myself and Norm. We're just about to go through some of the stocks that we were looking at on Friday. So starting with Disney, as I said, I was expecting it to go up. It did not. It actually declined all day. Pretty rough trade in the morning. Very choppy. As you can see by the chart here, it had some big wicks. It was really just sort of bouncing around, and every time you thought it was going to trend, it just sort of reversed and went in the opposite direction. That being said, it did set up a declining pattern over the course of the morning, right till sort of mid-afternoon when it made a nice run up. In fact, one of our moderators took a fantastic trade. I think it was on Disney that Thor was trading, and got some good gains out of that. I was not able to trade this this push up because I was convinced by then it was going to go down all day. So, but it turned out to be a good trade. Also in the day, we traded the Gap, GPS. GPS was also had I think it was earnings on Friday. Norm, was that right? You're sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. They missed their estimates. That's right. So. Going into the pre-market, I was sort of bearish on it. It put this rise up, which sometimes sets up for what we like to call a rising devil, but it was a little bit more of a rise than I was expecting. That being said, I still took it short because I saw this moving average coming. Look at this, as we like to say here sometimes, these levels are magic. And look at this 200 moving average swooping in. While it spiked above it right at the open, the reality is it sort of stopped right there. I took a short myself and had a great trade on this initial push down. I then got stopped out here as it moved back to VWAP because I didn't want to get caught in a big squeeze in case it came right back up to this moving average. So there's a couple of good trades in the Gap in the morning, but the rest of the day, frankly, did not do much of anything. On Friday, we were also looking at a couple of the Chinese stocks, Baidu and Baba. Starting with Baidu on Friday, it put in some good moves. There wasn't any specific news on it, I don't think, on Friday. There was earnings earlier in the week, but it just put in some good, consistent moves that gave us some trading opportunities.
They were popping up on news that a Chinese official had mentioned that the U.S. and China had agreed to start scaling back tariffs that were already in place.
Ah, right. Okay. And was that the same on Baba, Norm?
Yes.
Because I noticed that it was interesting for me on Friday watching. Because if you look at Baidu here, look at the little pop we've got, and then it came down and sort of bounced around the VWAP. However, if you look at Baba, it took a huge spike downwards just off the open. And Baba's done this to me before. I'm always very nervous trading this thing because you never know when it's going to do this crazy spike. I've been caught a couple of times in it, so I stayed away from it, but there was some opportunity if you were trading it. And last that I was looking at on Friday was Roku. Roku, one of our good old favorites. Roku was I found it tough personally. There was some opportunity in it. This doesn't look like a big move, but if I expand it out, you really see, this is moving by a couple of bucks. Sort of per swing here on Friday. The big opportunity came late in the day when, if you were reading it, the level 2 was clearly showing that it looked like it was going to go up, but I was not expecting, frankly, this big spike up by a couple of dollars that I know a couple of people in our room managed to take advantage of. I was not in the trade, fortunately, but there was opportunity there. So that was about it for Friday. So, Norm, have you had a chance to take a look at the global markets today and just see what we're looking like for this morning?
Yeah, overall, the SPY is down, like I just mentioned. So news came out late last week that the Chinese official had said that the U.S. and China had reached some sort of an agreement to begin to scale back or pull off tariffs that have already been put in place. And the White House came out and says, "Oh, not so fast. It's really not, overall, put a little bit of a damper on that. So that's pulled things back. That's what's causing us to be down about 0.4% this morning. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll say it again just because I know YouTube sound wasn't on, but today is Veterans Day, so the bond markets are closed in the U.S. We might see a little bit light volume, a little bit strange trading compared to what we usually see. So, like I said, it's Veterans Day in the United States. I believe you guys call it Remembrance Day. So thank you for all the veterans. And thank you for your service. As far as world markets go, Europe's actually down somewhat decently, 0.3% to even the FTSE's down 1.2% right now. I believe there's some Brexit issues going on that I haven't been able to really look at. Asia closed down essentially across the board yesterday. So that's what is going on that front. As far as the economic calendar goes, we have no economic data coming out today because of the Veterans Day holiday.
Yeah, and actually it's a good point that Norm makes that with the bond markets closed, that does set up an imbalance in the markets, especially for commodities that we trade here. The equities that we trade, not commodities. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I'm so far, that's playing out, right? We're seeing pretty low volume.
I didn't know you were pork bellies now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just concentrate.
This weekend I was actually watching some classic movies in Wall Street and Trading Places. Remember that? Both only indirectly related to stock trading. So anyways, but must have been Trading Places in my head with good old Eddie Murphy trading pork bellies. And was he trading orange futures or something?
Orange juice futures, yeah.
Orange juice futures. Anyways, all right, guys, let's take a look at what's moving today. So in our gappers list, you can see I've got here on the screen. We'll start with the top of the list and CARB, C-A-R-B, Carbonite Inc. I think they had some earnings, but I'm a little confused about the motion. Did I read the news right, Norm, that they had, because I thought they beat their estimates on their earnings?
Well, they don't. Their earnings are tomorrow night after the close, but they are going to be bought out by a company called Open Text, is my understanding. So it's a cash deal. That explains the chart we have here.
Indeed, I'm just seeing that news now. Okay, all right. So we got a buyout at about $23 a share. So that makes sense as we're seeing the stock price jump up and at that. Now, is that an all cash deal or is it cash and stock?
It is. No, it's all cash.
It's all cash. All right. So when we get an all cash buyout, guys, it doesn't make really a good trading opportunity. The price will probably just sit here right around 23 for the day. So while it's a good pop and it looks like a good gap, I would not be looking to trade that. So I'm just going to take it off my list right now. There's going to be no real levels on that. Next we have, look at this, Walgreens, WBA is next up. Now, I didn't, it just jumped onto our list, so I didn't have a chance to look it up. Any crazy news happening on Walgreens today?
I have not really found it yet. I know there's something, it's up 6%. It's a potential, I know there was some info about a potential buyout going private. I don't have anything that's fresh. This morning there might be news out there that I haven't seen yet.
Okay. Well, we've got some decent...
It's a KKR buyout offer, because I know last week there was talk of them going private. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it. Nick Dober, you're exactly right. So that's what's going on there.
Yeah, okay. So we've got some good volume. Walgreens, I have traded it successfully a few times and very unsuccessfully a couple of times. So you've got to watch this because it is a stock I find that can jump around unexpectedly, where it'll move very steady and then make a big jump. So I don't know what to expect with this buyout, but I'll keep it on my list for now. We'll take a look at some levels a little bit later. Next on the list, we have SunPower Corporation. Now, I know on SunPower there was definitely some news this morning on it.
Yes, so SunPower is talking about splitting its company into two publicly listed companies. So that is causing them to pop. A lot of times when companies split divisions, it's and so if you own these shares, you would essentially get an amount of shares in each company, is usually how it works. And then what that does a lot of times is unlock shareholder value by letting those individual companies, if a company has several business segments, it's seen that they can focus better a lot of times and become more profitable in each segment. So that's what we're seeing there.
Yeah, now SunPower does not have a great pre-market despite having 159,000 shares so far. I'm seeing that's coming in sort of some decent blocks because you've got all these minutes essentially with no shares traded. So I'm not really excited about it. I'll leave it on the list for now, but we'll see if it gets better a little bit closer to the open. Next on my list is Teva, T-E-V-A. Now, I know on Friday they had some news about earnings. They actually missed their numbers but raised their guidance. This might just be sort of further correction as a result of that. It is a foreign stock. We have to keep that in mind. So this could be a result of activity in foreign markets. I didn't see any news this morning, Norm. Did you find anything on it?
I have not seen anything new on Teva. I think this is probably just a continuation from last week. Hey, Peter, could you pull your gappers out to the right, expand it just a little bit to show the short float to people?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's. I should have that in there.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll put it. What I'll do is let me just shrink down the montage I've got here so it doesn't get in the way. We don't really need to see the bid and ask activity. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, I have on my screen as well both the sort of the data from Trade Ideas as well as from the DAS tool. So hopefully you can see some of the float information in those as well. So if you have any questions, though, don't be afraid to post it. And thanks for pointing that out, Norm. So Teva doesn't typically move well, guys. It moves a few cents. Some days it can move 20 cents or less. So while it is gapping this morning, I'm not really particularly excited about it. I'll leave it here. Maybe we can find some levels just in case it moves. But at this point, not seeing anything particularly exciting about it. Just to answer a quick question that we have, if you're using the DAS tool and you want that that information, it is the fundamentals window. So if you go into the menu, you can pull up the fundamental window, and that's where you get this window here that gives you some of the background data. All right, next on the list is BHP. It's been on the list quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. They've been getting a lot of flack as a company. Now, BHP is a foreign company. They're Australian-based mining company. Anyways, a lot of pressure because their U.S. shale business has not been doing well, and the market's been looking for them to sell it off, and they've been resisting that. I see they're down a couple of percent. Again, bad trading, though. Norm, unless you've heard some really specific news today that would make it exciting, again, I've usually found it just trade. I mean, look at Friday, guys, right?
Yeah, it's a commodity-based company, so it's a miner, so a lot of times it'll trade with the underlying commodities to a degree. Also, it's a foreign company, and sometimes the exchange rates can make things a little funky. So those two going against it, I don't usually trade BHP. It's not anything I'm really looking at.
Okay. Well, good, and that echoes my thoughts as well. I mean, guys, again, I've pulled up Friday here. Look, I mean, it essentially moved in a 20-cent range the entire day, just bouncing around VWAP. So not really a good opportunity. So I'm going to take that one off my list here. My PC is slowed down to a crawl. 1 second. All right. All right. Now UNG is on the list, but that's the natural gas index. I don't tend to trade those. I noticed natural gas has been moving this morning, but unless there's something really crazy going on, I will just skip over that and move to NXTC. Next year. Now, again, this was a big mover last week. I mean, you guys remember this was one that moved from $20 up to $100 on a single day. I'm assuming this is just sort of falling back to maybe more normal levels for it. Norm, any specific news today?
Yeah, they updated some data on clinical trials that they had. I think it's probably for the same trial that they had that popped this. Like you said, it opened at 25, it traded at 25 for like an hour and a half, and then there was some rumors of a cancer cure coming out of this company, and in short time and through something like 12 halts, it went from 25 to 109 and then pulled back. So I think this is just pulling back with that news of some more info coming out about that trial.
Right. Okay.
Keep in mind this is a low float too, so these things move like crazy.
Yeah, it's about a 20 million float, so it as Norm says, it can go a little crazy. Well, I've got 12 here
12
actually in my tools.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I know that FinViz was showing me 20 this morning, so somewhere, anyways, it's low. Okay. With that, why don't we? So that's all I had. I had a couple other things that I had found earlier this morning, but they were all low float. Just in case the low float team wants to take a look at them, I'll just mention them now really quickly. I had CANF and TRNX. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. They are not moving that well pre-market, but they had earlier this morning though some big gaps. So in fact, it looks like they've dropped down a little bit now from where they were. So because I know CNF, when I was looking at it around 7 a.m., it was up a good 40%. Now I see it's only up 3%. So there you go. When you get a $2 stock, that happens. So in fact, now that I'm looking at them, not very good targets. Okay. Norm, did you have anything else, by the way, that we should put on the list?
No, like I said, it's looking like a pretty quiet day. I'm going to stick to the gappers. Baba, I'm going to have my eye on Baba today. This somewhat strange holiday known as Singles Day in China, buying presents for yourself. That's called the day ending in Y in most people's books, really. Apparently, they broke all kinds of record sales. So I'll be looking at scanners. I'll have my eye on Baba. And if I see anything else that pops up that's really interesting, I'll chime in.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, well, let's move to some of our announcements for the day. Actually, Norm, I've got two. Do you want to look at the lineup for the week or the announcements?
Yep, lineup for the week we do on Mondays. So start on the first page and we'll go from there. So this is our usual weekly lineup. We just run through it real quick. Monday, you've got swing trade discussion with Brian. It'll be 2:30 here in the chat room. Class 1 onboarding every Monday night, 8 p.m. See you in the class. Tuesday and Thursday, we have the trade reviews at noon in the they are doing those in the classroom now. And workshop Wednesday at noon in the classroom as well. Then if you would change the page, there we go. All right, guys, so the Trade Ideas Fall Test Drive 10 days, $8.99 deal starts today, so you can still get the full 10 days of the scanner if you go to Trade Ideas and sign up for that. We've got a new scanner contest. We don't have many entries so far, so it's kind of expected. It takes a little bit of time to build the scanners, but if you do the Trade Ideas Fall Test Drive, you come up with some new scanners, we would love to use some great new scanners in the room. Again, there's a prize for that. Andrew mentioned even maybe an iPhone Pro or something like that, or an iPad. So we'll see. But anyway, that's there. Be sure to check it out in the forums. DAS's next number one best trader competition starts on November 15th. You can save $15. Use the code BBT15. Benzinga FinTech Awards voting is over, but we will soon find out who won. I think that's in about 10 days from now. Clearwater Beach, Florida meetup is at the end of the week, November 16th. Special guest will be there. Ryan's going to be there. Andrew's going to be there. So hopefully you guys have a great time. And then last week on Friday, we unveiled a new option. We have been asked so much about people doing installments for lifetime membership. So we've made it an option of 4 quarterly payments. Split up quarterly, and then after the 4 payments, you get full lifetime benefits from the start, but then it's 4 payments, and you're essentially fully vested in the lifetime membership.
Earn up to 40,000 Aeroplan miles, and first year, no annual.
So 35 off a lifetime membership. Pre-market code, pre-market LT35. That is for the one-time payment.
The TV Aeroplan Visa Infinite card.
Trader Tax in the room on November 19th at 12 noon Eastern. He's going to be talking about stuff for traders, our type of trading, everything from trader tax status to Section 475 mark-to-market accounting elections, wash sale rule, anything and everything of that nature that we get asked about all the time. And then there'll be a Q&A session as well. So really looking forward to that. Hope you guys can make it. And if you want to check out his website beforehand, it's greentradertax.com. This guy, he writes for Forbes. He does tax webinars for interactive brokers. He really is the go-to as far as taxes for traders, active traders. Then also, if you're watching us on YouTube, haven't been in the room and you'd like to try it out, you can use the 1-week chat room trial discount code PREMARKET24. Does not auto-renew, does not turn into another kind of membership. And then if you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, you'll be notified of whenever we go live with new content. Thanks, guys. Yes, William L. That is a typo. I'll get it fixed. Thank you for pointing it out.
Excellent. Thanks, Norm. I had a request in the room to take a look at CGC. Let me just call it up here and see what's going on. I know that there's some general market news on it. I don't see a lot of pre-market activity, only 38,000 shares traded. It's still within even Friday's range, so I'm not seeing anything particularly intriguing about CGC at this point. Okay.
All these pot companies, or most of them, have earnings coming out this week. CGC's earnings come out Thursday, I believe, after the close. So that's probably what might be giving these a little bit of a move here.
Yeah. CGC is a Canadian company. The Canadian markets, I think, are actually closed today, which I don't know what that's going to do in terms of the motion, but it's one of those things, again, to be aware of. So we've got different markets at different stages today, as opposed to the usual day when everything is open and can sort of move in sync. Yep. So let's do some levels, guys.
Peter, before you get to levels, one last time, and I'm going to say it again also because I know there wasn't volume on YouTube, but guys, for those of you that were in the pre-market show on Friday, Carlos got a call from his wife. She was actually going into labor during that, so right after the pre-market show, Carlos left. They had a beautiful baby boy yesterday about noon. So congratulations to Carlos. He will be taking the week off to spend time with his growing family. And you're stuck with Peter and I for the next few days. So just bear with us a little bit, and thank you for tuning in.
Indeed, and yeah, congratulations to Carlos, his wife, and of course his new baby. And thanks for that, Norm. Well, it's yeah, guys, I'm not used to doing this live. I usually just do it on my own, following along with Carlos. So it's a new experience for me having to try and set levels with you guys. So let's go through and do that. I'm just checking here. Nothing new that's jumped up on the gappers list that I want to take a look at. So we'll go through what we've got. Yeah, as you can see, I've got levels. So my levels are in purple on the screen. You'll see that. I'm just going to clear what I had, and we'll put in some new levels here. I have the pre-market highs and lows automatically marked here on my chart, so you're going to see those. I will not be adding those in because those set up for me. I'm just going to throw in a daily level here at the top of the previous few days. WBA has been trending upwards. Let's see back here if I've got any good levels I can add. I do like this level right here. Sort of set a flat top there, and I'm just going to put one slightly below where I had that immediate level. So that's about all I'm going to set in here at 63.85. I mean, I have no expectation Walgreens will get up to $72. But if it does, we'll be ready for it. If it does drop, if it drops, there's lots of places it could go, quite frankly, and I'm going to leave it with all of these previous day levels that I've got here. So, moving on then to SPWR. So, it's boy, it is really just in this crazy little range here. I'm going to throw a level up here just over $10 because I see it sort of hit that level twice and failed to move higher. It's possible that this thing also moves lower. What is this level here? Let me just check here. This low would be at $8.03. So let me just set this up to make sure it's right at $8.03. There we go. I've got a level down there now. I'm going to throw one right here too at $11. I don't think it's going up that far today, but you never know. With news that the company's splitting, it all depends on how people react to that. It may not go very far today, so guys, keep in mind, despite whatever news we have, things may not move a lot today, and a lot of the action may happen tomorrow when the markets get back to normal. But there's a couple of levels on SPWR. Moving on to Teva Pharmaceutical. Again, not a great trading stock. However, if it decides to go somewhere, we can see here that this had a high of just over $10, $10.03. So I'm going to put a level right there. Moving back in time here, I can see there's a little bit of a consolidation on the chart right here, 11.29 or so. So I'm putting a level on my chart there. And I've got a few that I'd previously set, you can see down below the price action. For me, that's it. That's what I'm going to leave as levels. You can see that there's some daily levels. So what I have is I have the yesterday's high and low and the 2 days ago high and low. They get automatically marked. Those are those red dotted lines you can see. And you look and see that they actually happen to match with some previous levels where the stock sort of moved up, stopped, and moved back down. So to me, those are great levels that I can use, and I don't have to add anything on top of that. All right, that's it for TEVA. Now moving to NXTC. As we said, this one, I am not likely to trade it whatsoever. I just, again, $25 to $100 in a day. You can see it chopped around for a few days, and now it's dropping back. This thing could go, frankly, anywhere. The pre-market, while there is volume, 400,000 shares, it's not real steady volume. It's coming in drips and drabs. You can see if there's a few minutes here with like virtually no volume, so the pre-market doesn't look especially attractive. However, looking at my daily chart here, I'm going to put in a level here at 44 roughly, right? 43.90, where I can see it sort of topped here. What is it at now? It's about $39. So I'm going to put another level just right about here at 40, where again it came up and failed to break out that area. And that's it. If it does come into play, I'll take a look at it at that point. But other than that, I'm not too excited about it. Norm had mentioned that he was going to take an eye on Bubba, so let's take a look. You can see that over the time I've got levels all over the place on Bubba, so let me get rid of all of those. And the last couple of days have given me a bunch of levels with the previous day's high and low and the 2 days ago high and low, which are already in there, as well as the pre-market. So that really sort of takes out all of the activity that's happening today. If this thing drops, boy, it's actually got some room to drop if it decides to go down. I sort of like this level right here. You can see it moved off of this a couple of times in this range, as well as here at the beginning of September. And then it almost got to that level again in early October. So I'm actually just going to put a second level in here because it just reminds me that there's levels are always a range. You need to keep that in mind. This is a $1 range I've got in here with 2 levels. But if it gets into that area, I'll know to take a look for those levels to take effect. If this goes higher, well then, yeah, then frankly, I'm going to leave just my daily levels. I will mark one up here just because I've got this high here at 195.72 was that high. May have been an all-time. No, it's not an all-time high. So I'm going to leave those as levels for Bubba. If it really starts to move today, I can watch it then and see what's happening. But I said I don't really have an expectation it's going anywhere. One thing I always like to look at in the morning is Apple, just to see what Apple is doing. It can often give me an idea for the market. So let me just take a quick peek. Yeah, really not a lot of volume for Apple. Chopping around a little bit. Not much going on. So, guys, that's it. Anything else that you specifically think we should be looking at, either on YouTube or here in the chat room?
And I'll mention that Apple's down just a hair. It's on a little bit of news, so there's been a complaint filed against Goldman that's backing the Apple Card, the new Apple credit card, having to do with the algorithm determining creditworthiness being gender biased. I guess there was a guy and his wife that both applied for Apple Card, and she had a higher credit score and better info than him, and nevertheless he got 20 times greater credit line than she did. And so they brought it up to the New York Attorney General, and they are investigating that situation. So,
okay, all right. That's that always makes me laugh because I know for years and years my wife left her job to stay at home, and I was the only one working, and she would get these offers for credit cards all the time with these big limits, and they wouldn't be offering me a credit card. We actually applied once, and I got a limit that was about a quarter of what hers were. So what you just described doesn't sound unusual to the way the banks have worked forever. But all right. Anyways, all right. In the room, we had a couple of recommendations for stocks to look at, starting with NVIDIA, so NVDA. Let me take a quick peek at NVIDIA. Pretty normal.
NVIDIA really for the last week and a half or so has just been shopping around in this consolidation range between like 200 to 10-ish.
Yeah, I'm seeing
206, 204, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's really just chopping. I mean, it looks like it's moving up a little bit this morning, but this is normal volume and normal activity for NVIDIA. So, unless there's some specific news, it's always on my list with the semiconductors to keep an eye on, but I don't see anything this morning that makes it a particular mover. We also had a recommendation for CLVS. Now, I had looked at that early this morning. CLVS was in the news last week for earnings. And as you can see, it jumped up on Friday, I guess this was, that it really sort of had to move up. It's not a low float, but it is a low-priced stock. Looks like it actually has some interesting movement pre-market. 700,000 shares traded. I don't have any news on it for this morning that I saw earlier.
I don't either. I think this is just continuation from Friday, really.
Yeah. So let me, just looking at levels, guys, if I look at the highs and lows of the previous 2 days, you can see, again, these red dotted lines in my chart. It's given me a whole bunch of levels around the price action right now, so that generally is good enough. The only thing I will add is I'm just going to put some bracketing levels in here. I just like to track it. One at the high of this candle here, roughly at 779, and then the low of where these few days, like there's a gap in here, right, with a few days sitting in the middle of the gap, which is a little unusual. So I'm just going to bracket all of these with some levels just in case this thing shoots up. It'll remind me to keep an eye on that, but I don't particularly have an expectation this thing is going up to $8 or $9 today, but who knows. So I'm going to put it here.
Two things I'll mention on Clovis here is it does have a high short float of 42%. per trade ideas. So if this thing started a little bit of a move on Friday because of earnings, it could be in a longer term squeeze that's popping, that's helping give that pop. So just a heads up on that. Arbano's mentioning some blocks of shares trying to be traded at 425 and 475. I would say probably those are no intention to fill. Those are far enough away from the price that I can't see it getting to that point. And frankly, 10,000 shares at 425 is not a big order. You know, or 150,000 shares really isn't. 100,000 isn't that big of an order either on a $4 stock.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not seeing anything, as like you say, particularly compelling. But you know what? We'll put it on the list, and it may just jump up later, guys. And that's why we use the scanners throughout the day. On a day like today, you know, it never worries me if I don't have a lot of stuff on my list, because I know that things will pop up. There's always something to trade. As long as, you know, just always remember, don't go chasing things. Follow your rules. Stick to your strategy. It may take you a while to find the right trade and the right stock, but that's okay. And hey, if you don't, then it may be a day in which, you know, you don't take a trade. That's okay too. So with that, that's everything that I've got to go over. I'm just checking to see if there's any other recommendations. Johan was WBA. We already looked at that earlier. Continued rumors of the privatization, potential privatization. Anything Tesla? Somebody mentioned Tesla. Let me take a look at that. I looked at it earlier this morning. I didn't see anything. It's moving a little bit pre-market. I don't think there's any Tesla news out there. It's been on a little bit of an upswing, as you can see, right? Since all through October and November, it's been you know, riding a little bit of the positive news. Every time there's a little more positive news, Tesla's moving up. Who knows what'll happen today? But doesn't. I'll keep an eye on it. It's always on one of my tech lists, right, with things that I like to take a peek at. But this morning, 188,000 shares again, pretty typical for Tesla. And anything else? That was it. That was about it. Oh, there was an upgrade. You know, just on upgrades, guys, one of the things to keep in mind, I don't tend to rate highly upgrades or downgrades in the market. Every once in a while they can move, but I find they don't have lasting daily moves. Sometimes it can cause a pop. Unless you get it, like, you know, a bunch of analysts that are really upgrading or downgrading a stock significantly, unless there's other driving news that created the upgrade or downgrade. You know, those I sort of take note of, but will not add them to my list for that. I'll wait and see if they actually become movers through the day. So, just looking at YouTube, somebody's suggesting we take a look at NKTR. Yeah, I don't see any good pre-market activity. Only 34,000 shares traded. I don't know, Norm, you probably haven't had a chance to take a look at that. I know I haven't. I don't know if any...
No, I have not. That's low. Nectar's low float, isn't it?
Let me see here. 173 million it looks like float. So
I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you, because in my head I sort of thought so too. If I look at the movement on Friday, just going back, you know, it had sort of a steady pull up and then it flattened out. So unless there's something moving it, yeah, I'll wait and see if it jumps up onto my scanners list. So that's all I've got, guys. So with that, I'm going to keep an eye on WBA, SPWR, and Teva. I'll keep NXTC and CLVS. I'm not so excited about them. These two low floats I mentioned, not really good, so I'm just going to take them off my list. And then we'll see what Andrew finds, and if he finds something else, we will be adding it to the list. So on YouTube, thank you so much for joining. And guys, remember, it is Remembrance Day, so 11:11 a.m. is a specific time that I'll recommend maybe you take a pause. Remember those who served, fought, and died for us to give us the freedom that we enjoy in North America and around the world. It's very important that we recognize all those who have served and are serving in our militaries. They sacrifice so much to give us the quality of life and the opportunities that we have, and we have to remember that, not only today, but every day. But keep that in mind, especially today. So thanks again for joining us here. And yeah, we'll talk to you again tomorrow. And I want to welcome Andrew. Andrew, welcome.
Happy Veterans Day, everybody. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Veterans Day. You remember people who sacrificed their life, the most precious thing that they have for others, for the country, for their mission, for their values. So we certainly value that for sure. Yeah, well, I'm back in Vancouver. I'm just 45 minutes north of Vancouver. Squamish is a small town that's very outdoorsy and climbing and stuff. So I'm here with my family and some friends staying for the weekend. I'll just drive back to Vancouver today. People that sacrifice their trading accounts. Yes, Brandon. So we remember those people too.